What's up, guys? Josh with Navigate the Wild. So today we are going to do a Euro mount. I learned how to do this a few years back, but over the last few years I've perfected, I wouldn't say perfected. Perfection is a strong word, okay? But I've gotten better at doing this every year. To do this, what you're gonna need is a propane tank. I use a propane tank. I use any type of turkey fryer burner or propane burner that you would use for a turkey fryer. I like this one because it's a little lower to the ground. It's a little easier to work with. And my bucket sits more flush, okay? So normally what you do is you're gonna get this thing rip-roaring to a boil. My first move, most of the time, is a scoop of OxyClean. I put that in the water and the skull sits in that and boils for about 45 minutes before I start messing with the power washer or anything like that. I don't have any OxyClean. I'm out and it's New Year's Day. So we're gonna skip right to step 2, which will still achieve the same process, and I've got extra so I can use it, but we're gonna use peroxide. It's a 40 volume cream peroxide mixture, and I'm just gonna pour it in the water, and this is used primarily to whiten your bone. You wanna get that nice sparkling color. You put this in after the OxyClean. So the OxyClean usually goes in for 40 minutes. I will boil the bones. That will help lift off all the excess skin and fat and stuff that's left behind if the eyes were left in. Because a lot of times these guys don't take the lower jaws out. A lot of times they'll leave the tongues in, stuff like that. So it'll help me break all of that off the bone. And then I'll pressure wash it and knock off bits and pieces of it, and I'll put it back into the OxyClean. So water, one big heaping scoop of powdered OxyClean. And then once I get it to the point where there's no more fat, because let me tell you something, if you leave anything in the nasal passage, anything in the ear canal, anything in the brain where the brain's connected, it will rot and it will stink. I don't care how white it looks. You'll have it in your garage looking great, and next thing you know, your wife will be like, something's dead in the garage, and it can be a speck of black in the nasal passage. So you got to make sure you do it over and over again, and there is nothing left in there. You got to bust out the ear canals, which I'll show you, get all that grime and gunk out of there as well. And then you fill it with fresh water. You put peroxide in there. You boil it in the peroxide until it's as white as you want to get it. And then you let it dry. After that, I use Mop and Glow, liquid Mop and Glow, to basically seal all the bone. And then you're good to go. So we're gonna do a Bobcat skull that I've had in the fridge for almost a year now. So we're skipping the OxyClean this time because I don't have any, and we're going straight to the peroxide. We're just gonna add it into the water, and this jug is low, so I've got extra. I'm gonna get all of this out of here. So we got a Bobcat skull. I shot this Bobcat, I think, a year ago. I left the eyes in, the lower jaw on, because I've never done a Bobcat skull, so this will be a first. It's got some really wicked teeth. That's gonna be a cool mount. So that's going in the water. Boom. This is a trick of the trade. This is just a piece of wire that I have collected, a piece of like, almost like fence or whatever. Rebar, really thin. And all I've done is just bent it. And the reason I do that is it allows me to get in there and eye socket the back of the skull, jaw, and I can reach in and pull out what I need to pull out without getting wet. So get something like that to have. That really helps with the process as well. Obviously, if it's a skull with antlers, you grab it by the antlers. But this bobcat, raccoon, anything like that, it's good to have one of these around. Oh, it's been going about 45 minutes. My wife beat me enough in backgammon to felt like 45 minutes anyway. So anyway, the first thing that we're going to do after the initial boil is we're going to take a skull out. I never had a rubber, what is this called? Apron. Now I have an apron that is all the way down to my boots, and then I got my long boots on because this gets everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. So I'm actually going to take this mic off. I've got a 0 tip on my pressure washer, and this is just a little 1500 psi. It's the perfect amount of pressure to do work like this. You don't have to really worry about breaking any bone or anything like that because it can get brittle, especially in the snout area. So I'm going to take off this microphone, and then my wife will film this portion. Back in. But look at that. Still a little bit of fat there. All that stuff has to come off because it'll stink. Alright? But really cool. Okay, so far we've got the lower jaw. That was really easy. But all this fat needs to come off, right? So it's going to go back in. But the first thing I'm going to do is you've got the ear canals right here. And this bone is soft. So I'm going to take a screwdriver and put it in here and just break the ear canals open. That way we can get all the gunk out of the off of the brainstem. But we've retained all the teeth, really cool looking. And we just want to be cautious because the more you boil that, these teeth get more and more loose, and you don't want to lose the teeth. So. All right, guys, so by far, this was the easiest Euro mount that I've ever done, and I thought it was going to be harder because it's just such small bone, but it's clean in the nasal passage, all of this stuff up in the ear canal and the brain stem. That's where all the little stuff sits. So what you do is I'm just going to let it dry off. Just such a cool Euro mount. I'm going to let this dry off, and then tomorrow I will run Mop and Glow all over it. Once this dries, if there's any little fat left, it will dry out and it'll turn like a yellow, and that'll kind of help expose it. Sometimes you get stuff, you know, all these little crevices, you know, they just hide stuff. So I'll go in there with like a really small flathead screwdriver, and I will remove it. But that is a Bobcat Euro mount from Florida, upper and lower jaw. Very cool. Thanks for watching. Navigate the Wild.